privileged to have with us a noted psychologist, mathematician, naval seaman, author, Swedenborgian writer par excellence. He warned me not to make too big of an introduction for him, that it would go counter to his deeper spiritual interests. So I'm going to trust that everyone here has some acquaintance with Van's works. We do have a new book that this evening is particularly celebrating, The Country of Spirit. If you haven't seen it, there will be lots of copies displayed in the parish house following the talk. We will have a talk with questions and answers about an hour length, and then there will be a reception in the garden room immediately following. We hope everyone can stay and join us for that. So without any further ado, Wilson Van Dyke.
I lose all track of time. I've done a lot of meditating and I had fierce trouble with time. I couldn't tell the difference between 5 minutes and an hour, actually. So I learned to meditate with a stopwatch right next to me. That's true. Complete loss of sense of time. Are you able to hear me all right? This is about my normal speaking voice. If you can't, raise your hand and move up front. If you can't hear me, you have to move up front. All right? Now, if I get out my notes, which I may or may not pay attention to. I've spoken here twice before, many years ago. Is there anyone who remembers me from before? Oh, goodness. Do you remember what I look like and all that?
Yes, the same.
I look just the same. I have not grown any older. I lived much more, though. I wrecked my right knee. I have polio on one side and a wrecked knee on the other side, so it gives me trouble. How many have read one volume of Swedenborg? A show of hands. Not many in a Swedenborgian congregation. You know, he's got some slim volumes. Heavenly Doctrine is pretty good for that because it summarizes all the rest and it's all in one volume. That's terrible. While I've got you raising your hand, how many have attempted in their life to contact God at some time? Show of hands. Very. Should be everybody. I'm surprised you're not. Well, contact God. Send a message. Pray. Pray. Okay. All right. How many have felt that they got a response from God? That's a good number. Maybe a third, more like 25%. Okay. To me, this is what my talk is around, and this is the critical thing. What I'm trying to aim towards is what I call generally a dialogue with God. A dialogue is when you send a message and you get a response that makes sense. And then you're in a dialogue relationship. And this, in Swedenborg's terms, is what causes regeneration. Because you cannot get in this dialogue without being changed. It's not possible. Okay. I have a difficulty I may as well mention while it's occurring. I have a box of Kleenex here. A long time ago, I asked God to give me a sign when I was speaking from beyond myself. A foolish thing to ask. And he gave me this sign. It is a welling up of feeling, much stronger than feeling than I would wish. In the Eastern Orthodox Church, this is called the gift of tears. And it's considered a real big gift. It's a wonderful gift. If some guy has got the gift of tears, you really want to go consult with him because he feels the doctrine at a very deep level. Well, all that's very true, but it's really a pain in the posterior to try and speak to a public audience with the gift of tears. So you be patient with me. I've been to psychological experts, by the way, to try and straighten out my head on this and what causes this and so on. Got lots of theories, all of it failed. It wasn't until I found it in the ancient church writings, a description of this, of the gift of tears. It's apparently, it occurs in all religions, I don't think only in the Orthodox. And one of the things I figured out about mine, being a psychologist, I'm always working on myself. I am my prime case to the toughest nut I've got to crack is myself, of course. I figured out that I may not conceal this, so I start out a talk by telling you about it, and I point out the box of Kleenex and everything else. I have been known to use a whole box of Kleenex in a major talk. Let's hope it doesn't happen. But it is there. I'm going to describe a little bit of the interior experience. What happens is I'm trying to talk along, I'm trying to reach you. I'm trying to make something clear to you. I'm trying to keep it at this level where I think you'll grasp it. And suddenly the bottom falls out and I feel all the other implications of what I'm saying. And not now, I don't want this, you know. I've tried to give this gift back and I've been quite unsuccessful. Apparently you don't give back this sort of gift. I have tried to. Okay, a little bit about my history so you can begin to psych me out. I'll make it easy for you. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I am a native son, a rare type. I no longer live here. I would hate to live here now. I come from a small town and I get culture shock when I come down here. All the traffic and the noise, and it's just too much for me. I go back to my little town of 10,000. It seems crowded up there, but oh my, that's nothing compared to this. So I was born and raised here. I went through public schools here. They were probably better then than they are now. I was away 3 years in World War II and had some exciting adventures and was very fortunate to survive the whole thing. I can tell you one little incident. I was on a ship that took on a full load of explosives. We had 5,000 deadweight tons of explosives. We were attacked twice by submarines and went through 39 bombing raids. And all they needed to do was really shake us, or one tracer bullet would have set the whole thing up. And it was not a frightening experience because it was a funny kind of reaction I had. Now, I was on tankers and you worry about where's the lifeboat, get my jacket on, get the lifeboat, get off there before the thing burns and blows up and so on. On this, there was nothing to worry about. We were attacked, there was nothing to worry about. You either be alive or dead. There was no in between. Actually, I slept through most of the bombing raids because I figured tomorrow morning I'll either be dead, there's no problem, or I'll be alive and I have to work. If I have to work, I need my energy. So I really didn't bother me particularly. I can tell you after the first 200-pound bombs you saw, the first bombs were loaded. When you see thousands of them loaded up, it doesn't make any difference. So I survived that. I went to UC Berkeley, got a master's in psychology. Psychology has always been my interest. Then I got a PhD in Canada at a Catholic university, by the way. I wasn't Catholic. And I worked for many years as a clinical psychologist in a plain old nut house up north. It was one of the most progressive of the nut houses, but it was a nut house. We developed some very advanced programs. Along the way, I have become a member of 4 different churches, and I like to spring this on Swedenborgians, who kind of surprises them. It's really 5 churches. I was baptized a Roman Catholic, and I'm in the General Church, the Swedenborgian General Church, Swedenborgian Convention, this one. I'm in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and I have it on good authority of a Buddhist priest that I may consider myself a Buddhist. And I'm in such sympathy with Buddhism, he said he considers me a Buddhist. So I'm now a member of 5 different churches. I ought to get there one by I went into the Eastern Orthodox Church. They knighted me. That's this one here, the Order of St. Basil the Great. They knighted me for contributions to theology, believe it or not. And since then, I've studied the Orthodox Church very much, and what it was for me was a grand tour back into early Christianity. For several years, I didn't read anything past the 14th century. I was way back in the early beginnings. And I can give you a kind of a summary of my impressions of early Christianity. It was much richer then. They had many spiritual methods which worked. These were more or less chronicled. They're a little bit hard to ferret out of the writings, similar to Swedenborg, by the way. They would get into these deep spiritual practices, and they wouldn't think it necessary to tell everyone what they did in these practices, so you had to infer some of them. But the early church found and lost many great treasures, especially among the great strivers of the monks and the nuns who spent their whole life on a spiritual quest. These people made great discoveries, and we've lost much of that. I found myself very compatible with the Eastern Orthodox Church. Somehow there's this deep-rooted tradition to me. This is very nice, but I like something that even reflects more tradition, icons all over the place or something like that. In the Orthodox Church, they say that these saints are there and they're looking down on you. And I like the feeling of being in a crowd of saints and all these great figures, and they're all looking at me, and I'm there, alive in the midst of an ancient tradition. I like that. So I have this kind of traditional aspect of myself, apparently. I've been a mystic all my life, and a mystic, the word has been very badly used, but a mystic to me is simply someone who has contacted God. Now, I've known mystics that the contact lasted about 4 seconds, and that was it. There was enough to alter the mind. The mystic often falls into a contact with God. They don't know how to get there, or they don't always strive for it. It may just come. There have been major instances. One guy was looking at a pewter bowl, and he saw a kind of rainbow light on the pewter bowl. There it was. He took off. He saw all there was to see. My first major mystical experience was at the age of 1, and I had to describe the setting to my mother. I was in a crib, and she confirmed that I was there, and she was surprised. I remembered it and so on. I remembered it because the sunlight came through the window, and I saw everything there was to see. See, there's the tears again. I feel the depth of the thing. Doggone it. Let's talk a little bit about what religion is. To me, religion is the garnered wisdom of the past. That it takes a culture of peoples a long time to create a religion. Now, another aspect of religion is that it often fits the setting and the times that they were in. So if I tell you about a religion where praying to polar bears and seals, you might begin to suspect it must be an Eskimo's religion. And the Eskimo, in order to survive, he has to be able to hunt and kill a polar bear and seal. Well, then the religion has this whole aspect of sort of balancing things out. That he talks with the spirit of the polar bear and seal before the hunt. He prepares himself so that the seal will come to him and offer himself, you see. And after he kills the seal, then there's another ceremony where you kind of even things out with the spirit of the seal. And that's what I mean by religion, which was created in a setting. It has sense in this kind of setting. Our Christian religion has a broader kind of setting than the Eskimo. Right now on television there's a series of Millennium, and they're touching on this just a little bit. Primitive religions, and they talk about the relationship of the fishermen to the fish in the river and so on. They're just touching the edge of the thing. To me, all religions make sense and they're all correct, but they're correct in different ways and they accomplish different things. There are religions which are markedly historical. Jewish is an example. and where most of the religious life is recapitulating the past. And you must identify yourself as part of this past. And you get into this recapitulation of the past. It occurs in the Christian churches where there's festivals throughout the year. I think you have it much less in the Swedenborgian church. So we have churches which are historical recapitulation. We have that a little bit in Christianity. 12 stations of the cross that the Catholic goes around. He's identifying he is Christ going through these 12 stations and so on. To me, I'm partly a social scientist. I'm interested in how things work. And religions are models that you can take apart and see how they work, and they make nice sense. So I would feel compatible with pagans, Buddhists. I would join the Sufis if there was anyone around that could initiate me into the Sufi, because I read the literature and it's good. The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam is a Sufi literature. It's not talking about sex, it's talking about a love affair between the individual and God. That you need to know about the Sufi. It looks like sex, but it ain't. Or at least it's sex in a higher plane if you want. Now religions garner the best of the past. They always deal with the entrance into life and the exit. All religions do it. They have to do with marriage and baptism, all the things where you're initiated into this process, and then death where you go out of the process. All religions do that sort of thing. But also a good religion deals with your relationship to the things around you. I think our Western religions do this very badly. Not near as well as the primitives do. The primitives have all kinds of rituals of the relationship to trees and plants and animals and insects and everything else. And the intent of these rituals is to bring them into harmony with nature, to come into a harmony. We barely know what harmony is in our society, you know. We're a long way from the kind of, to me, the gift of that kind of religion. Religions also talk about what it's all about. Why was it made? Why am I here? Where am I going? That sort of thing. Most all religions do that. Some do it in mythological form. And as Westerners, we're not used to the mythological form. Out there you've got St. George. St. George is a myth. The Catholic Church looked at St. George and they took him off the calendar because they couldn't find any St. George. But he's a major figure and he's affected history even though he never existed. He's a mythological figure. He represents a lot of things, but one of the things he represents is a man who must do what is right. So St. George coming upon a virgin, there was a dragon-eating virgin. And the village had to send him a virgin every now and then to keep the dragon pacified, okay? St. George seen the situation and said, I just got to put a stop to it, even if it cost me my life. And in most of the Orthodox icons depicting the situation, God is there, the hand of God is there, and it's helping St. George. That if you really try your utmost in a difficult situation, and it is a noble situation, God will help you. Will be one of the combatants, so to speak. And if God's on my side, I can't lose, that sort of thing. So St. George kills the dragon. We have lost the sense of myth. Myth is extremely similar to what Swedenborg is talking about, the internal sense in the Bible. That's the same language that he's talking about. And one of the things I was talking about with Reverend Lawrence at dinner time, the Swedenborgians are thinking of throwing out this whole interior sense. Okay, I've got in mind a book, I'm going to try and bring it back in, but they must have some way of finding the interior language as real for them. And you can do that in part by just identifying with the figures in the interior language. I could give you a myth, and I get you up here acting it out, different parts of it. And it works best if you take the part you feel is for you. You're the hero type, you're the lady in distress or whatever. You take the part that feels right for you, you act it out, and you switch roles, and you begin to see what the myth is talking about. Myths are talking about the all the time, eternal. That's what myths are talking about. Myths are the dream of a people, a whole culture. A whole culture has a dream, and this dream represents the potential in the culture, what will be, what could be. All of this is represented in the myth. And we've lost the sense of this language altogether. It looks like a weird story. What good is that to me? They're talking about crows making the world and this and that and the other thing. Weird story. Doesn't make sense to me. We're so alienated from this kind of process, we can barely recognize myths as being quite real. But when you go to sleep tonight, the average one of you will have 8 dreams, and it's pure mythological language that you're dealing with. You walk right back into the world of myth, and you do it every night, because if you don't do it, you'll go crazy. And we psychologists have very cleverly interrupted the dream process until people go stark raving mad. What happens, the dream starts coming out, and it's right there. It's all over the place. And you have to let them dream so they recover their sanity again. Dreams, myth, and the internal sense that Swedenborg was talking about, these are all the same thing. It's a very special language, and I can tell you that kind of the key to getting into it. This book by Dusen on the Journal of Dreams, I talk about the process of getting into dreams. I work on my dreams when I'm half asleep. Don't wait till you wake up and go to work and that sort of thing. Too late, you're in the wrong world. Do it when you're still half asleep. Real groggy, and I go through the dream. And I try to identify this part and that part till something clicks. I finally feel, oh, heaven's sakes, it's talking about this. And I can recognize that element, and the whole thing comes apart for me. I can tell you another clue about dreams. I wrote an article on this that's not been accepted in the journal because it's too far out for the Swedenborgian. It's something I discovered, and now it has helped me very much to interpret dreams. What dreams are basically is God talking about God's relationship to you now. What troubles God has with you now. Very often in the dream, the person that you feel is you, that's God. The person who is other, that's stupid you. And if you look at that relationship that's occurring in the dream about the one who is you and the other, it's talking about the difficulties God has with you at present. So the purpose of the dream really is your regeneration, your enlightenment. That's the purpose of it. Of course, you just sleepily forget the whole thing. You're getting 8 a night. 8 a night very regularly and throw them all away. Terrible. Stupid thing to do. By the way, they're specially designed for you in your situation, your framework, your conception, your concern. Specially designed for you. You couldn't ask for anything better than that. And it is mythological language. Okay. Religion is the guard wisdom of a people. It guards all the entrances and exits into life. It talks about the general design of life. It tries to lead, it's the wisdom of the past as to the best way to live. And it says do right and so on, but to me, right is a very practical thing. I've done wrong and I feel so blessed guilty. There's certain sins I have been punished for so badly, I wouldn't dream of committing them again. I'd rather kill myself. I've been through that one. So I follow the straight and narrow on most things, many things, because it's simply a better way to live. It's a happier way to live. I enjoy myself more. Okay, now an essential thing to understand about dreams, religions. Every religion, you have to get into the interior of the thing as a part of your own life, or you will not understand it. I don't care if it's Christianity or Buddhism or something else, you won't understand it. It has to become a part of your very life. Only from this interior where you are an exemplar, a church in the least form, is what Swedenborg said of this. You are a church in the least form. a form of an individual. It's in this interior that you can sense the nature and the proper rituals and so on, all of the aspects of your church. It has to be interiorized, otherwise you don't understand it. And part of the social scientist, I understand part of the exterior, how it functions and all, but I'd have to be a primitive, live among primitives, so I've deeply understood their religions. Okay, to interiorize it. When religion is interiorized, you are then in a position to enter a dialogue with God. That's what your religion was for, whatever the brand of your religion is. See, I'm quite ecumenical in this. I'm looking at cross religions. I'm not one of those that says this is the best for all. Heavens, no, we're much too different. There are some people who are so weird that they have to be a church in the least form, that they're a church of one. There can't be two of them because they're too weird. I've known many of these in the mental hospital. Okay, when it's interiorized, you can then enter into a dialogue with God. You not only speak, send a message, telling him, hey, God, give me this or something like that. You get an answer. And the process deepens when you see that the one answering is more intelligent than you. That to me was, oh my goodness, I'm so happy to find there's someone around smarter than me. So I have some guidance, I want some guidance that's smarter than me. And so now I have this working guidance, and I start to work in a particular area, and it says, no, this will be beyond their understanding. It's practically shut off. I said, what? You mean I'm not to do that? I thought you want me to do that. No, it's beyond their understanding. You're not to do this. So it leads me another direction. To fiddle around with religious processes, I developed my own spiritual method. I'm not selling this. I'm not a guru who peddles these things. What I did, I was very attracted to the Eastern Orthodox Church, especially since they knight me. That's right now I'm working to help them out, and I may be able to get money for the Orthodox Church in Russia, who badly needs it right now. I've got a scheme I'm going to send up through the bishops, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, I felt attracted to icons. So what I did was just take a simple icon. This cost me 15 cents. It's a paper icon, St. Innocent of Irkutsk. I know his history, but his history is totally unimportant. What you're looking at is a picture of the spiritual. I chose him out of a book of icons because they look sort of grumpy, like me, and I could identify with him. That's why I chose him, because I felt he had a real tough time, St. Innocent of Irkutsk. They sent him off to Siberia, and he worked in the ice and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I took this as a simple method, and I spent 15 minutes a day simply gazing at the icon. Now, I have in my head an assumption. This is a picture of the spiritual. That's my assumption. A picture of the spiritual. And the icon then becomes an anchor in the spiritual. So that the icon, I may drift off and think of this, that, and the other thing, but as long as I'm gazing at the icon, I'm anchored and held in this spiritual realm. Then I went through 3 years now, 15 minutes on up to an hour a day, all kinds of discoveries. I discovered things about the icon, things about me, but I'll give you a couple examples. How subtle this process is. I'm in the dialogue. The dialogue is functioning. I would ask for something, to understand something, well, particularly this is where it occurred. I'd ask to understand something, and I would not get an answer for 2-3 days. Very unusual. And at the end of that time, I began to discover I was being changed subtly inside. That I was being altered inside in order to be able to receive the answer. And the answer came after I was altered inside. I had to change my whole interior frame of reference, or I could not understand the answer. Now, that's what I mean when a real dialogue is taking place there. I'm dealing with something which clearly wiser than me, knows the design of Van Dusen, how to turn Van Dusen around, knows he's stupid in this direction, turn him a little bit this way, maybe he'll understand, so on. And that is a supreme aspect of the religious dialogue when you get that going. That you got someone smarter than you leading you around and showing you. Now, recently I had a couple of Swedenborgian ministers. How am I doing on time?
Great.
28, that's not bad. I should look at it now and then. The interiorization of religion, making it a part of your life so that you see it from your own interior. One of the implications of this is you've got to understand yourself better or you will not understand the religion. So it's a kind of dual thing. You're going to have to understand yourself and the religion, both, in this interiorization. Lately, I gave up sort of on the Swedenborg realm. I wandered a long time away. I wrote this book, Presence of Other Worlds. This is my earliest, God-Man Communication. I don't recommend it. I can do better now. You're surprised at that. Uses, that's a good one. This is a spiritual method drawn right out of Swedenborg. Why on earth I have to be the first one to do it in 2 centuries is beyond me, because it seems so terribly obvious to me. A spiritual method, nice, clean, clear, easily presented right there in the writings of Swedenborg. One you ought to be practicing. I did this one, The Natural Depth of Man. This, and a guide to the enjoyment of Swedenborg. This is how to get into him, how to get into this interiorization process. And the people that read this book, it's odd that a number of people read and commented on it, and they all quoted the same passage where I said, if something strikes you in Swedenborg, write it down and put it on the refrigerator door. They all quoted that same passage. That is, that if something is spiritually meaningful to you, put it in front of you where you're going to see it. I have a roll-top desk at home. You know, it's an old-fashioned roll-top desk. I made the whole top of it an altar. It's got several icons and crosses up there, and all of the sayings I could think of are pasted across the front of it. I'm sitting in an altar when I do my work, literally. So what I'm saying is that begin to shape even your environment to suit you so that it begins to express what's inside you, you know, so that you can realize what's inside you. If you like so-and-so kind of art, get that kind of art. Whatever it is, you like your garden neat and clean and so on, make it neat and clean if that's part of your spiritual life. If aiding others is part of your spiritual life, heaven's sakes, go out and do it. There's all kinds of jobs for volunteers. Then, of course, this one. This is a collection of my writings. I've given up on the Swedenborg realm. I wandered away a long time ago. I'm over in the realm of early Christianity and Buddhism. And he came by and he said, let's look at your writings, and so he picked out the ones that he thought would do particularly well. It's a funny thing. Let me tell you a little bit about writing, because some of you may be a little not clear on this process. I think I was born to be a writer because I had a vision when I was 3 years old. I was scribbling on a magazine, sitting in the backyard at an old wood table, scribbling on a magazine. I couldn't write yet. And I suddenly said to myself, oh my God, I'm going to write most of my life. Then I thought to myself, well, that's not a bad life. Scribbling. And that's what I've been doing, scribbling ever since. I have in my head a kind of muse. I feel like secretary to the muse. That's the best way to describe it. The muse points out things that I should work on. The muse says, now, isn't that a curious subject, so to speak? And I start gathering facts and information on it, and the muse tells me when it's ready to write. And the way I can tell is it's got phrases and sentences, and the whole blamed organization is there, and it'll wake me up in the middle of the night if it needs to. I have done some good writing in the middle of the night. I get up and just set it all down. I'm like a secretary just slaving away for this darn slave-driving muse I've got inside myself. And he's so bad, I can write 4 hours steady at my desk. I go into lunch, and I figure, okay, now let's have a little break. I've been writing 4 hours steady. Not many people can write 30 pages a day, you know, in the morning, like I do at times, I get just tremendous output. So I go into lunch, I'm going to relax. Tuna sandwich, the muse goes on. That passage where you talked about so-and-so could be done better. I bring in paper and pencil, I know he's going to do this to me. So I could eat my sandwich, I jot it down. Okay, that passage. Change this word over here, change the word over there, okay. He's correcting the darn thing. He's correcting the thing I just wrote, and I'm trying to eat lunch. By the way, this kind of illustrates the relationship of the interior and the outer. You have inside you something much more brilliant than you that can conceive of the dreams that you can't even with all your effort figure out, can write poetry and these other things. This poem in here was written in one of these inspired moments. It just, uh-oh, here comes a poem, and I set the thing down. There's a whole bunch of others I could have brought. I didn't know there was any interest in them. I have one called Little Buddha, and it's about an ant walking. And it describes this ant walking as though it is Buddha incarnate walking in front of me. It's just a poem that burst out of my head. And it comes out, and I can't see the whole poem. I know the general theme of the thing. I start setting it down. Oh, it's about an ant. Yeah, I see. It's about Buddha. Okay, I got that. And there it is, all formed. And needs very little revision. So that, and if it is to be revision, then he wakes me up and he says, change that passage, do this, do that, the other thing, and so on. I think that's what the writer is. It's a sort of a mania that occurs in the writing sphere. I was sitting with a lady one time and she was stewing over doing an introduction to a book. And my wife poured the tea and she was stewing about this and she tried 8 introductions and they all didn't work and so on. I said, wait a minute. I went out to the next room. I wrote out the introduction, was 6 pages long. I come in, the tea wasn't cold yet. And there it was, the introduction to the book. This Sunday the news says, I've got an introduction for you. Just go write it down. So I write it down. It's that kind of process. To me, it gives me great confidence that there's somebody around smarter than I am. Perhaps this is divine, I don't know, but he's pretty good. He's pretty good. I respect the judgments of this one. I check on him. He can't lead me to jump off cliffs or anything like that, but I check on him. But still, there's a certain wisdom in me that just comes out. Now, Swedenborg did the same process of interiorizing religion. He used 2 methods, and the methods I now understand extremely well. And I will be writing on them. 2 ministers contacted me. Thorhaldsen, I don't know if you know the names of the buildings. Come out, give us a guru trip. Come out and be the great guru for the day and so on. And I thought to myself, I don't want to be a guru. I don't like being guru. I never get paid for this. It just takes time and all that. Oh, you think I make money on this? No, I don't make a bloody cent. It costs me money, as a matter of fact. So I thought to myself, I'd rather not go out there. What I will do is I enter into a dialogue with these 2 ministers. The 3 of us, we are only to speak Swedenborgese. One minor restriction. We will construct out of Swedenborg spiritual methods. We'll have to push them one step forward. I.e., uses is one of them. Uses is clearly one of them. The first one I really did. Swedenborg used dreams, but didn't particularly recommend it, so it was a difficult method, but he was able to use it. But Swedenborg's 2 methods, and one of them I'm going to describe because all of you can do it. Swedenborg wrote a book called Messiah About to Come. How many have read it? Not even our minister. Have you read it? Really?
Most of it.
Okay, there's one. He had to read it. He went to a seminary. The Messiah About to Come is about the most misunderstood book Swedenborg ever wrote. When you look at it, it's just a collection of biblical passages. Okay, this is Swedenborg's notebook of biblical passages. Big deal. But you look in this notebook. He operated from an assumption, and this is a key assumption to enter into this method, that the Bible is the Word of God, and God is present in His Word. Present now in His Word. So he read the book in a little bit different way than an academic would read it. If God is here, I will look at the passages which leap out at me as having meaning for me. And those are the passages he copied down. Now, if you look through all the book, there's not many pages. If you look through all these passages, they're all saying the same thing. Oddly enough, they had the same theme. He was running the same thing over and over and over again. Read Isaiah, read this, read that. He was running the same theme. Always the same thing was leaping out at him. Also, he put in a margin, note, or we put NB. And the translator didn't even say, what's NB? What's NB got to do with the biblical passages? We're speaking Latin. Nota bene, note well. He had a sudden light would appear on the page, a flaming light would appear on the page, and this would mean here is really the celestial right here in front of you. And so he would write NB and then he'd copy down that passage. Now, what was he doing in this whole thing? He's treating the Bible very seriously. The Bible is the Word of God. It's alive and speaking to me today, especially where I go to the parts which are meaningful to me. Reach me and say something to me. And if you read all the passages, they're all saying the same thing, and they're all leading towards, I am coming to you in your life. I will manifest in your life. So the book is called The Messiah About to Come. Now the book has a strange ending. The translator was very puzzled because it's a whole book of biblical passages, and suddenly the last paragraph is not a biblical passage. And the translator put down the footnote. I don't know where this came from. It's not a biblical passage. Why is it here? Well, the last paragraph, the Lord came to Swedenborg and wrote through his hand and said, the sign of my presence will be righteousness. This is the sign of my presence in you. He manifested, wrote on the page right there. So what was foretold in all these passages came true in the last paragraph. And after that, Swedenborg started the Arcana and all the other rich theological works. Obviously, something bigger than Swedenborg was operating in these. This is essentially the nuts and bolts of Swedenborg's biblical method. He interiorized the Bible by that way by recognizing what parts of it were him, speaking to him, meaningful, alive to him. This is a method anyone can use. Now, the difference between Swedenborg and most of you is that he'll be more persistent. He was terribly, he had a powerful intellect. He was going to zero in on this quest, and he did it with great persistence. I figured you guys are all sluggards, but you could do it 15 minutes a day or so. I don't even suggest more than that. I started out 15 minutes a day on this. Sometimes I went to a half hour or an hour. But I discovered all I want to know just in 15 minutes a day. It didn't take a lot of time. One of the things I found was that I interiorized this method. I understand in great depth. I wrote an article in Orthodox Journal on it and so on. One of the things I discovered was that I started to feel like meditating on my icon when the icon was there. And then suddenly, I went through a kind of transformation. I could see the icon with everything. So that I could meditate on my icon all the time. There was no difference between meditating on the icon and not meditating on the icon. It became all of life for me. This is typical when you really pursue a method, that it enlarges and it takes in the scope of everything. So Swedenborg at first had to be in a deep trance to see heaven and hell. Later he was doing it just like this, talking to a sea captain, and the sea captain said, well, it doesn't look like we're going to get to Sweden, and the angel speaking to Swedenborg says, you will arrive on the night of so-and-so, the so-and-so hour. Tell the captain that. Swedenborg says, Captain, you're going to arrive at so-and-so hour. He was in London, a long sailing trip up there. They arrived, that's what he said. that he was getting this kind of noetic knowledge, just called his mysticism, direct understanding. It's not in words, usually not in words. It's just direct understanding. You know something positively, you don't know where it came from. It's just out of the blue. I suddenly know. Noetic knowledge. Swedenborg was then not in a trance. He no longer needed the trance. So all the spiritual methods you explore, and the method itself, if it's a good one, if you get into the dialogue where the divine is coming to correct your stupidities, which is a great, thank God, gift when it comes, to illuminate my stupidity. My wisdom I can see already, but illuminate my stupidities because I can't see them very well. You know, when that comes, then the whole process leads to kind of regeneration. You're altered. One of the things I went through with the icon was that I went through strong periods of the profound humility. So much humility, I was frightened. I didn't even think of the word at the time. I couldn't look at the eyes. I had to look down at the spot down here, and I felt this vastation, Swedenborg used the term, as though you've got nothing left, nothing here, nothing. And I was somewhat afraid of the process. It was so profound, this kind of humility that I was led to. This was about maybe 6 months into work with the icon. Then I went back to the Orthodox literature, and they got literature of the saints talking to each other, how to do things. And I discovered humility is the greatest virtue that could be taught to a person. And I thought to myself, wow, this is not being bad. Dusen going crazy. I'm being taught humility, which is the pinnacle of the virtues. Thank you. You know, just feel very thankful. By the way, the basic religious spirit is to be thankful for what you get. You know, to appreciate things. The Orthodox would even go to such an extent that they'd have an illness and they'd figure that God gave them the illness for some good reason, often to teach them humility. And I've got lots of nice illnesses that I'm continuing to be taught humility. To such an extent that one saint, after he recovered, prayed that the illness be returned. He had seen so much use in it, he didn't want it to go away. Anyway, Swedenborg used two methods. I've described just one. The biblical one is available to anyone who wants to do it. It takes a certain amount of persistence, and I can't get around that. These methods, these gurus, you go for a weekend and you're going to have enlightenment and by Thursday night or this sort of thing. Nonsense for the most part. It's not substantial. What is substantial is what you make yourself works for you, and you see that it works for you. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. That is then substantial. Swedenborg's other method I don't recommend, but I'll just comment on very briefly what it was. He used two methods which created the whole richness of his writings came out of these two methods. The biblical one, you know now, and you can practice it. The other one was an intense concentration. What he'd done was, as a boy, he would take a philosophical question and zero in on it until he entered essentially an inner state. And he would see it in a new light, similar to interpreting your dreams when you're near sleep. It's similar to that. He would actually enter into a trance, and he called this minimal breathing because when he came out of it, he took a deep breath and he figured, maybe I haven't been breathing. I think he was breathing, but very shallow. When I worked with the icon, I timed it, I examined that, and the breathing and the heartbeat went way down, slowed down. That's maybe one of the reasons I hard time keeping track of time. Anyway, he had this other method which he used as a boy. He rediscovered as an adult. It was apparently a suitable method for him. Now, what I'm saying about methods in general, you ought to find what works for you. I'm not advocating the same for all. I'm not advocating the same for all at all. We're much too different. My wife is a fiber artist, and her enlightenment's going to come from fiber arts, I'm sure. It can't come anywhere else. Some through music, some through just art and beauty, a variety of ways. For some, the ancient religious forms, whatever they are, work for you. That's fine. All of these things, though, you must interiorize. You must work with it long enough take something you're attracted to, stay with it, 15 minutes a day, at least 6 months before you give up, you know. If you're not getting some kind of response from God that's showing you that on the other end of your stick is someone wiser than you, it's the wrong method, or you're interpreting it wrong. Oftentimes, I think the difficulty is our interpretation we lay on ourselves. We misunderstand. So I got a joke on this one. And this joke illustrates a spiritual principle. Let's see. One guy is a fundamentalist, and he said, now, Joe, if you would simply go out and gaze up at the sky at night, ask God for enlightenment, you'd get it. And Joe says, you're full of crap. You know, and Joe's a realistic kind of guy. Anyway, Joe one day gets into great difficulty and says, okay, I'll try it. He goes out on the back deck, looks up in the sky, prays God for enlightenment, and it starts to rain. Joe gets water in his eyes. Suddenly he just feels overwhelmed. I'm an absolute idiot, he says to himself. He goes back to Joe and he tells Joe, I did this and so, and this is what happened, and I just felt like a total idiot. And the fundamentalist said, see, I told you, you'd have enlightenment. Now the joke is even funnier than that. If he only understood that was enlightenment, that he's sort of an ass who goes out, tries things and so on, that doesn't so. If he understood that this was the beginning of enlightenment, then he could have used it. He could have said, yes, maybe I am an utter fool. I'll go back and try again. That's the difference between the person who finds enlightenment and the one who doesn't. The one who doesn't says there's a bunch of nonsense and quits. The other one says, maybe that's what I was looking for. Something which tells me the truth. You know, the truth in this case is a good starting point. You're an idiot. I felt that. I don't know how they count this time, but sure most of the audience have too. Especially when I'm speaking. Okay, let's have some questions. Summing up just a little bit, interrupt your questions. Look for what attracts you. Zero in on it, be persistent with it. Swedenborg is a champion racer because he was doggedly persistent. But you can accomplish much in 15 minutes a day. Now the main difficulty with this dialogue is that you asking God for illuminate me or so on. You would like kind of a thunderbolt out of the sky or something real plain, a package come in the mail, or something really clear, you know. But you're dealing with someone who stands beyond time, who foresees your whole destiny. A little difference in viewpoint. So you and the divine have a tremendously different viewpoint. And most of my difficulties in my dialogue have been coming to understand the difference in the viewpoint. But be careful when you look up at the sky and you feel that you're an utter fool. Understand that is the beginning. Excellent, excellent beginning. Go back and try again. And then you maybe find out precisely what kind of fool you are, how you could be better at it, and so on and so on, and then it's developed from there. Okay, question. Sir.
Yes, would you say something about your connection to Fritz Perls and all of this and what that was for you? I mean, I've read...
Yeah. Most of you don't know Fritz Perls. Fritz Perls was a cross between a guru and a bum, or a prophet and a bum, is what his wife called him. And he was really a great prophet and a great bum. He was both. Fritz and I worked together for a while. Fritz had something I could see was really marvelous. Fritz could look at a person and see what was wrong with them. He would watch how you move, how you speak, and so on, and he could capture the essence of a person so fast. As a psychologist, I've been taught this big baloney routine of taking a history and all this, and here he was looking at how his shirt is wrinkled, how his pants are, and his hair is mussed up, and so on. He was going right into the nature of the guy. So I learned that from Fritz. I learned to look very carefully, and I did admire him for that, and I consider him a great man in that respect. We were associated together for about 2 years or so, then sort of split up. My wife had a terrible spat with him. She threw a sugar bowl at him or something. She considered this a moocher, and he was. He was mooching. He had pots of money, and he was living off of me, and he wanted me to write the great book for him. But I figured it would be terribly tough to write a book to please him. It's hard enough to please me. Sir?
Yes, you mentioned that when you feel you have a response from God, that you test it. How do you test it?
The main test is that it must lead to good. It must lead to understanding and good. If it says, for instance, that I'm a big shot, or I'm wonderful, and so on, everything with vanity in it, I instantly would suspect. I've had people come to me and they're asking basically, Guru, have I got enlightenment? That sort of thing. Where I see a trace of vanity, no, this is mistaken. It must be for good. Now, I give you an opposite example. A lady came to me and asked that same question. Is this a good thing? Did I contact God? And what she had was an odd situation. She was the wife of a bishop, and her father had died. She had very troubles with her father, bad relationship. And she suddenly one day, a friend came to her and said, I am from your father, who was dead, and your father wants to reestablish a good relationship with you. And then left. And she had this noetic feeling. This was a messenger from God, though it was in the form of a friend. Because everything that occurred after that, it tended towards good. It made her open herself to her father, pray to her father, felt closer to her father, and so on. Everything that came out of it was good. I no longer question it then. So that's the kind of test I mean. If it tends towards good, I lay my hands off it. I will not judge it. But if it leads towards vanity, which I've seen a number of times, one lady felt that she could read my, what do you call this, halo, or colors, auras. Yeah, the aura. She could read my aura. And so and she said, Dr. Van Dusen, you got a wonderful aura, very spiritual and so on. And I was very skeptical. And I waited for her to tell me the aura turned brown. It took her a long time. She was dim-witted. She couldn't see me for beings. I was very skeptical. But she wanted me to say, you are great because you are seeing auras. It's all fantasy, you know. My aura should have been mud because I thought that she was all dead. So spiritual. But anyway, I tested that way. If it tends towards good, fine. Respect it. No matter how odd it is, respect it if it tends towards good. You'll avoid all kinds of troubles in the spiritual world if you do that. You know, like the devil saying to Christ, step off, if you're the Son of God, step off here. Well, that's just pure kind of vanity play, you know. If you're the Son of God, you can step off here, show us all, you know, crash, you'll break your neck, of course.
Doesn't that, in a sense, bear out St. Paul's admonition to us? Test everything, hold on to that.
Yes, exactly. Test everything, hold on to what is good. Remember what is good. So when you have spiritual things come to you, I very much recommend people write them down. Take them seriously. Give them more strength by writing them down. Make a notebook of them or whatever. Remember them. Even if they're little tiny things. So I have little tiny visions of heaven. Just multiple little visions of nice things, which I set down and keep records of. Like Swedenborg did with his spiritual diary.
Do you write down what comes to you when you are working with the icon, or do you just do
Oh yes, no, I write while
as you're doing?
yes, because I'll lose some of the intensity of it if I wait until afterwards. So I write right at the time. Yeah, and I have pages. I have a big stack of things like that. I got books that he doesn't even know about yet. It'll be a heck of a job to edit.
I wanted to know what your relationship is to Swedenborg today, how you hold him, how you work with him today. Because it seems like you're getting so much from the Eastern Orthodox Church. And I just wanted to know if you moved away from Swedenborg.
Well, In effect, I moved away from Swedenborgians, but not from Swedenborg. He is, to me, one of the great leaders in my life. Always will be. I've even dreamt about him and so on. I hope to meet him, talk to him one day in the spiritual world. He's a great figure. I very much admire him. To me, Swedenborg's writings are like the Himalayas, these vast mountains, and there's this one someone climbed, that one climbed. Most of these nobody has ever climbed yet. There's few writers I can say that. Carl Jung, in 2 or 3 years, I thought I understood. Heidegger and these others, I can understand in a short time. Swedenborg, I still go up there and climb the mountains and get lost in the wonder of the thing. It's vast. It's almost too vast. So I very much respect him. But I'm a little bit distant from the Swedenborg realm. I may come back in if these ministers want me to bring out methods out of Swedenborg, and if he'll publish it, I'll be back in the realm again, at least for a while. I'm mainly working in knighthood and chivalry right now. I'm a very big shot in knighthood and chivalry. You don't believe that, it's true though.
If Swedenborg had been a Catholic, would he be compared to a saint? Is there any relation or comparison that way?
Well, yes, I think there would have been a good chance he would have been sainted if he were a Catholic, because he had the miracles which prove the sainthood. The Catholic Church has a kind of strict standards about sainthood. I prefer the Eastern Orthodox, which is very different. If somebody, when he dies, everybody in the neighborhood admires this guy and thinks he deserves sainthood, he's made a saint. Miracles, no miracles, don't make any difference. He's got the vote, so to speak. I think that's a better way, because their saints then arise from the people that knew them best. And that makes a saint. Then I think it's a better way to do it than the Eastern and the Catholic, where they're kind of legalistic. Was there this kind of miracle and so on. Among others, they should have sanctified was Father Damien of Molokai. Absolutely. You know, I don't think he had enough miracles or something. It doesn't matter. I mean, you live a really good life, you live an exemplary life, that's what the saint is. The saint to me is someone who embodies the spiritual. You can see it in their way of living. And you can see it in Swedenborg's life. He devoted his whole life to setting this stuff down so you can read it today. So for you guys to be negligent on this, shame on you. Anything else?
You mentioned, you referred to God and also then to sort of some smarter person at the other end of the stick.
Yeah.
How do you relate that personally to Jung's concept of the unconscious, of the collective unconscious?
It's the self. Jung's self with a capital S. Jung never really quite said what the self was. It's the divine in the person. In the Eastern Orthodox Church, it's broken down more clearly. It's the Holy Spirit I'm dealing with. The Holy Spirit is the one that's hanging around ever since Christ's baptism. It's still operating in everything. By the way, you can't even think without the Holy Spirit. Especially you can't pray without the Holy Spirit. This is one of these kind of paradoxes. You can't pray unless it comes from the Holy Spirit. So who is doing the praying?
Do you have any of your poems with you?
No, just the one, it's in the last chapter in this Country of Spirit. I didn't think to bring them. I mean the Buddha, the ant Buddha. So
Yeah, that one or any. Would you
yeah,
like to read us
I've got a
that?
whole bunch of those. No one's ever published them.
Really? Would you like, but there's one in that book.
Yeah, the
Would
very
you read it to us, please?
I could not. I could not. You buy the book, I could not read it. I've been asked to do this before, and I can't. If you want to see tears, you'll get too many tears.
Just one theological thing that I've been struggling with. Would you say that, you said that you were into Buddhism, and I've been into Buddhism too. Would you say that the Buddha nature is the same thing as the Holy Spirit?
Yes, ma'am. Exactly. Yeah, we have difficulty translating between terms, but yeah, that is the same. For me, if you look at all the religions, they're all trying to do the same basic good thing. There are broad differences. Some are more social, but our fundamentalists, our black fundamentalist churches are markedly social, markedly singing together, moving together, and so on. Well, our church is trying to do somewhat different things. And I think we blossomed this tree of churches, so many churches, because we need all these different forms. But one thing I like about Buddhism and Hinduism, the church never splits. Oh, why can't we learn from that? It never splits. You can be this kind of Buddhist, that kind of Buddhist, this kind of Hindu, that kind of Hindu. It's all Hindu. And this fellow, this priest I spoke of, considered me Buddhist because I was so empathetic to the whole thing. He didn't look to see if I had the rubber stamp on my forehead that said Buddhist, that sort of thing. Yeah, there are churches that don't split. Hinduism is one of them. So you can develop all kinds of different ways of approaching God. They're seen as all different paths winding up the mountain, and they all get there. So they're all okay. And they're for different kinds of people. We get into these terrible battles. Oh, you're on path A. I don't like path A. I'm on path C, that sort of thing. Which is very unfortunate. Buddhism has not been involved in any major conflict. Christianity has been an umpteen of them. There's things in the designs of religion that lead to war and peace. Buddhism has a peaceful design. So I admire that. It's one of the great churches. Another thing about Buddhism, the whole church, the whole religion is built A to Z, that you come into enlightenment. That's the whole purpose, the whole thing, everything they do. All the ceremonies, all the readings, all of this, all of that, everything they do is for that. It's not to edify your intellect and that sort of thing. It's to lead you directly back into the kingdom, so to speak. So it's great in that sense.
There's one form of Buddhism, Nichiren Shoshu, does have a history of violence. That came a little bit later than...
Well, there may be. I'm thinking maybe also the samurai. Or were they...
In Japan, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, maybe there's a little bit of history. Anything else, people? You all figured it out. Okay, I'll give the signing in there while I'm talking.
I presume Dan will be willing to speak with people and even sign books, so it goes against the vanity code. So if everyone would like to just go out to the right as you leave the church, you can join us in the garden room.